The International Criminal Court is investigating allegations Russia has committed war crimes in Ukraine. It comes as Russian forces appear to have captured the southern city of Kherson. It's the first major city to fall since the beginning of the war as Russia ramps up its assault on Kyiv and Kharkiv. Kyiv is also the target of intensive air and artillery attacks. Residents, many of them trying to escape. I was joined a short time ago from Washington, D.C. by Labor MP Peter Khalil. He's visiting the US as part of a bipartisan delegation from the Parliamentary Committee on Intelligence and Security. Peter Khalil, joining me from the White House. You've been receiving briefings at the White House with national security officials, security agencies, congressional leaders. I guess dominating a lot of those talks, the situation in Ukraine, and I'm sure they're impressed like the rest of us with the bravery of the Ukrainians fighting back. Yeah,
g'day, Kieran. It's really been top of the agenda for us in our meetings. Obviously, it's a bipartisan trip with the Intelligence and Security Committee. Those meetings really have focused on what's happening in Ukraine and the Russian aggression, but also, I think more broadly, strategically, the discussion has turned on the Beijing Moscow alliance or convergence or partnership and how that plays out in our region, in the Indo-Pacific. Obviously, there's a reshaping of the European security order unfolding before our eyes, clearly. There is an impact on the shape of the Indo-Pacific in that respect as well. And I've focused primarily on, obviously, Australia's national interest, maintaining the stability of our region, our security and our prosperity. And that really goes to engaging with the US and collaborating with our partners in the region on trade and the economic security piece, as well as other forms of exchange and engagement, so that we actually protect that liberal rules-based order.
So, Peter, I'll get to that economic security story in a bit later in the interview, but I want to explore, first of all, what are you hearing from the US side of things as to the prospect at any stage of US troops potentially being deployed to Eastern Europe? Is there any chance of that?
Well, there was a clear indication, obviously, in the President's State of the Union address, which we watched last night, that there won't be US troops or boots on the ground in Ukraine, but there will be a very strong deterrent, if you like, of US troops under NATO, particularly in Eastern European states like Poland and members of NATO, the Baltic states and Romania and Poland and so on. That's very clear. That line has been drawn and a very strong message put to Vladimir Putin that if he crosses that line, there'll be pretty significant consequences in a military sense. But let me just say this, Kieran, about Ukraine. There has been a real galvanizing of support for Ukraine. People have been surprised here, I think, by the courage and the bravery of the Ukrainian people, of the Ukrainian president, the Ukrainian defence forces, to withstand this onslaught by this dictator. And they are pouring out their support, obviously rhetorical support, but it's coming in a substantive way as well with respect to military aid, supplies, weapons, logistics, and the whole lot. So that is a really significant thing. There has been a reshaping of that European security order. The Europeans are now supportive of Ukraine in a way that they haven't been in the past, with Germany, Finland, even Switzerland, as the President noted, which was formerly neutral. So it's been a significant shift of the European security order.
Yeah, indeed. And what's happening in Europe affects all of us, doesn't it? United States, Australia, our region. It has reverberations across the world, Peter.
Absolutely. Look, one of the things that I got out of the meetings so far this week is the fact that, there is a real understanding of the contest that is going on globally between authoritarian regimes and democracies around the world. And we're at a crossroads, frankly. Kieran, Australia is making a choice. There's bipartisan support for our support for Ukraine, but also with respect to our engagement in our region, in the Indo-Pacific, both with our partners like Japan, the US, Indonesia and others in the region, because it's so important for us to maintain that rules-based order, and we need to do it together, collectively. And I think there's been a real wake-up call with what's happened in Ukraine, and people are watching it very, very closely with respect to the impact on the Indo-Pacific.
And one of the messages you touched on earlier that you've been trying to articulate to US colleagues is the need for them, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically the message on the economic front is don't leave our region in that sense, the trade or economic sense. Fine, the military component and the strategic component, but don't leave the economic field either. Is that basically the message?
Yeah, that's been the strong message that we've been delivering to our counterparts in Congress, in the Senate and in the House, but also in our engagement with White House officials and intelligence agencies as well. And that is, yep, the military engagement is great, the strategic piece is great, the diplomacy and the engagement is great with, Secretary of State Blinken paying a visit with everything that's going on in Europe. He was here in the Indo-Pacific, or he was in our region. But there is a missing piece, and that is that economic framework, that Indo-Pacific economic framework that's really necessary to give an alternative to countries in the region to, for example, China's BRI framework, that there are choices there and that they can actually make those choices. And that is of critical importance for us. And I say Australia as a trading nation, it is absolutely paramount that we get this piece right, because our prosperity is based on our trade. Kieran, we need to get the architecture right. This is one of the big challenges over the next decade in our region to maintain Australia's prosperity for the future generations.
Labor MP and member of that Parliamentary Committee on Intelligence and Security, Peter Khalil, thank you for joining me from Washington. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.